Today I'm going to introduce, it's a writing strategy or writing approach that I've developed called structures. And what I'm going to do is sort of share this program with you. And really it's a vehicle to talking more about applying instructional principles to providing informational text writing instruction. So, we're going to talk a little bit about what are the challenges that children face when they're writing informational text, and how we might need to address some of those challenges. And then this program will sort of be a vehicle for showing some of those things more concretely. So during the presentation, I would like to I know it's a webinar, so it's a little bit difficult to have sort of an interactive presentation. So I would like, though, for you to try to have some active involvement in the presentation. And there will be a couple of ways that I'll do that. And one is that I'd like you to sort of, as I talk, think about taking some notes in the following ways. So one of my students shared this with me at one point, and I really enjoyed it. It's sort of a triangle, square, and circle way to take notes. So sort of thinking about as I go through some of the points in the presentation, if there are points that resonate with you, points that you think are important, take those down, list those. And so, as a triangle has points, I want you to kind of think about the points that you would like to remember. And then the square is to represent things that might square with your thinking, that these are things that, as you think about your own instruction, these things sort of seem to fit within the things that you're currently doing. And then the circle is to sort of represent things that are questions that are still circling in your mind. So during the presentation or after the presentation, we can talk a little bit about things that are still sort of questions that you have, as we go on in the talk, or as we go forward. The next thing I'd like to do is I want to start the presentation off with having us think about writing informational text. So this is difficult over a webinar, but I want you to start off writing a little bit. So we're going to write a paragraph about the Rio Grande River. And I don't know if many of you know much about the Rio Grande River, but I'd like you to include at least 3 facts. And I'm going to give you 3 minutes to write. Given that this is a webinar, I might not give you a full 3 minutes to write, and I'll probably talk while you're writing. But I'd like you to all get a pen and paper out, or you can take notes on your computer, or you can write on your computer, however you'd like to do this. But I'd like you to write a paragraph. So go ahead and start writing now. And remember, you have to include at least 3 facts, and it needs to be a paragraph. And I want you to think a little bit about what's needed. What do you need to know, and what do you need to do in order to write this paragraph? Some of the obvious things might be you need to know facts about the Rio Grande River in order to accomplish this. Some of those facts might be where the Rio Grande River is, or the length or width of the Rio Grande River. But what else do you need to know in order to be successful at this task? There's a question from Leanne about whether we should be seeing a presentation on our screen. And so, George, I know that you said you can see it on your screen, and others have said that they can see it, so that's good. Okay, so I may not have given you a full 3 minutes to write, and that's okay. What I'd like you to do is write in the chat what was required to be successful in that task. Are there things that make that task easy or difficult for you? Even as adult writers, what are the things that um, you would need to be successful? So some people say knowledge about the river. It's difficult knowing the actual facts. Background knowledge is needed. Several people have noted that. And you guys can see this in the chat. So research, the ability to BS. I love that test. That's great. Yeah, I think that a lot of times students BS. And it's funny because I've done this before, and some of the facts that I get are things like, well, the Rio Grande has water in it. The water is wet. Things like that. And to be honest, I don't know that much about the Rio Grande River. I'm not going to be assessing you on your knowledge of these facts, but yeah, but as people are noting, you need a source of knowledge. You need to know what the overarching ideas are. You don't know what I'm looking for as an assessor of the task, right? What you need to know a little bit about paragraph structure, right? So how to write a paragraph. What are sentences, right? And do I put all of the facts into one sentence? Do I break it up into multiple sentences? What are effective approaches to writing a paragraph? So that's great, and I I love all the things that are coming up in the chat here. So here are some of the challenges that I've sort of come up with, right? Informational text writing is difficult for children in school because they're pretty used to writing narratives or stories, right? And those have familiar structures to them. They have familiar parts like characters, setting, plots, emotions. But students are sometimes not exposed to informational text and the structures that it has, right? And prior to school, we find that students or children are not exposed very much to informational text. And then even in school before fourth grade, they're not really exposed a lot to informational text. Nell Duke did a study in 2000 in the United States where she found that kids interacted with informational text for only about 3.6 minutes a day. Now I think we're probably getting better at that, since 2000, but I still think that there's, I've been in a lot of schools recently, and I don't see a lot of interaction with informational text in early grades. Vocabulary is unfamiliar and it's technical often. Concepts may be new to students, and so you're asking them to write about these things, and it's sort of a challenge because of many of those reasons. In addition, students with learning difficulties also sometimes have lower executive function skills. So these sort of skills include working memory or inhibition or cognitive flexibility. And so because they have lower amounts of EF resources available to them, they sometimes will have challenges during writing. And so I'll give you an example of this. As students are writing a paragraph or writing a sentence, often I'll be working with a student and they will stop and they'll say, can you help me spell, this word? Whatever word it is. So you need help spelling this word. Sometimes the teachers will help them spell it. Sometimes they'll give them the spelling. Sometimes teachers will tell the students, it's okay if you don't spell it right. Just do your best and move on. And so, so then the students will they'll spell the word, and then they turn to me and they say, I forgot what I was going to write. I don't know if many of you have had this experience with children, but I've sort of come across this where they forget what they're going to write, and this is because their working memory is taxed as they have to stop and they have to think about the spelling. Then they don't have as many cognitive resources to hang on to the ideas that they were intending to write about. So there's some challenges with executive function skills. So what can we do to help children as they write information? And so one of the challenges that you all noted was sort of having background information. So that was a challenge, not knowing the facts, right? So what could we do? One thing was we could give them sources to write from. We could give them different texts, and we can say, go ahead and read a little bit about the Rio Grande River, and then you'll be able to write some facts about it and write a paragraph. Well, that's a good strategy, and this is what a lot of teachers do, and that's what I did when I was a teacher. I would have my students write from sources. One of the challenges though here was that sometimes my students who were struggling writers or struggling readers might have difficulty identifying the information to use from the source material. So sometimes they have difficulty with reading. Sometimes they have difficulty identifying important information from the text or paraphrasing that information rather than just copying it. Sometimes they may have difficulty taking notes and sometimes reading back their notes and then organizing their ideas. These are all things that kids might have difficulty with. And we might say, well, we can help them with their note taking or organizing ideas. We could maybe give them a graphic organizer. And so I'll share a couple of graphic organizers I found, just from a web search. So this is a Venn diagram. We're all familiar with Venn diagrams. And you can see that it's very difficult sometimes for children to write in their Venn diagrams or write their notes in a way that is easy to read back, right? This one's pretty good, but it's a little bit, difficult to read in places. Here's another example where a student has sort of drawn some arrows to show that, this transverse wave sort of somehow connects to light waves, and frequency, pitch, and amplitude might need to fit in the middle of this Venn diagram. I notice that kids do this a lot when they draw their Venn diagrams. The middle part here where differences are supposed to be is really small, and the outsides of the circles are very big. And so the students tend to, sort of have difficulty fitting in the information that they want to write about. In these two examples, the handwriting is actually pretty good, right? The handwriting is pretty good, and the students somehow, fit some words in here that you can still read. But I've seen much worse, and I'm sure that you guys have also seen, some note taking that is very difficult to read back for students. So there are these challenges that kids face when they write from sources. So what I set out to do is I wanted to design a writing program that added some scaffolds in for students. And so I thought a little bit about, what is effective information writing instruction? What could I do to maybe effectively have students write informational text? And so one thing I thought is I need to reduce cognitive load that I'm placing on students. If I want them to learn how to organize informational text, then I need to reduce the amount of reading that they need to do beforehand and reduce transcription demands on from spelling and handwriting. I need to provide some models. Maybe I need to teach some planning skills. So how to plan around how to write the information in an organized way. Maybe I could teach a strategy for them to follow that might help them organize information in a really good way, or that they can have a plan for how to approach an informational writing task. I would want to teach goal setting and progress monitoring. I think I would want to chunk skills, right? There's a lot to do when we write informational text, especially multiple paragraphs. So I'm going to need to chunk skills into smaller amounts, or smaller, maybe attacking one skill at a time. Providing visual cues could help. I'm going to need to support background knowledge and provide maybe by providing information to students so that they don't have to maybe do all of this reading. And as we know, if I just assigned information writing to students, then that might be challenging because they may not know the facts, right? I might want to teach students how to combine information together as they get information from different sources, and then teach cohesion elements, things like transition words, and then of course I'm going to need to teach with fidelity. So there are a lot of things that teachers need to do in order to write information effectively. I'm seeing some notes in here. I think that they're not really for me. If somebody could sort of track those the chat, and if there are anything times that you know, if there's any questions that I can address as I'm talking, that would be great.
Michael, I am monitoring the chat box.
Okay,
Some
great.
people are asking about whether they will have the PowerPoint slides, and the answer is yes. We will be sharing the PowerPoint slides with everyone.
Great, great. Okay, thank you. So looking at this slide, there are a lot of things that teachers need to do. So not only are there a lot of things that children need to do when they're writing informational text, but there are a lot of things for teachers to remember to do. This is very challenging, right? So teaching writing is challenging because we need to remember to do all of these things, and that can give us some cognitive overload. So yeah. Let me see here. If I want to see what happens on the slide. Okay, this is great. I've got some animations in this slide, so I wanted to share it, and I was hoping that it didn't share the whole thing. So you know, I want to share with you the simple view of writing model. This is Berninger and Antman did this sort of developed this model where they showed that students, you know, their transcription skills, handwriting, keyboarding, and spelling here on the bottom left vertice of the triangle, and then executive function skills, which they sort of noted are attention, planning, reviewing, revising, self-regulation. These two bottom vertices of the triangle support text generation. So as students, if they have better transcription skills and better planning and reviewing and revising skills, that they will be able to generate more text and generate better text. However, they say that these things are constrained by working memory, sort of as I noted previously, right? And so, let me see. Okay, so in addition to this, I added text structure and organization to these things. So organizing is also sort of, I think, falls under this executive function area. So planning, reviewing, revising, organizing is also something that kids need to be able to do. And when they write informational text and generate text, they need to generate it using maybe text structures that are different than narrative text. So these two bottom vertices of the triangle allow for text generation. However, you know, as we're teaching students, they may not have these organization skills or handwriting or spelling skills. So the things that we might need to do is support some of these things. So I set out to develop a program where we could sort of support transcription skills in a way, and give students some text so they don't have to generate all of the ideas, right? And if by doing that, maybe I could teach students how to organize and how to plan informational text. And so that's the approach that I'm going to share with you today. To develop this program, I initially developed an instructional approach and some materials. I had focus groups with teachers. Then based on those information that I got, or the feedback I got from the focus groups, I revised the program. And then I went into feasibility testing with students and teachers to see, you know, whether or not we could, they could teach this, and teachers could use this, and whether it made sense to students. And then we had interviews with both students and teachers, and we refined the program, and then we've done some further testing on it. So I'll share some of that in a little bit here. The program is sort of a modular approach where I teach students to identify and discriminate expository text structures, and then utilize information frames to enhance understanding expository text. So I teach students how to take notes, and then I teach them how to write informational passages using text structures. We're still developing, in addition to this program, where students analyze and interpret expository text. and rewrite text to fit a single text structure. I felt like it was important to include an instructional model that included a flexible gradual release of responsibility to students, where we discuss and model how to use the strategy that I'm going to share. We teach students to identify and discriminate text structures, and then we provide them with guided practice. So practice identifying, discriminating text structures, and practice writing text structures. And then the teacher checks students' independent ability to identify and discriminate and write their text structures. So, you know, you've seen my slides. You see that we've sort of developed this this sort of construction themed of text structures, where you can see these I-beams and rivets up on the top, and so this is what my intervention looks like. And one of the things that we've done is we've developed these icons, and we developed icons as a visual cue. Remember, I said maybe visual cues could help students understand the structure of text for informational text, right? And so we've developed these icons. And so you can see we've got simple description, compare, contrast, and sequence. We call those descriptive text structures. And then we have relationship text structures around problem solution and cause effect. And we call these relationship text structures because, well, we can't have a cause without an effect, right? And a problem often goes hand in hand with a solution, or solution goes hand in hand with a problem. So we've got these descriptive text structures and relationship text structures, and you can see these icons with the pictures that we've developed to sort of share, you know, what maybe an icon to help kids remember what's the purpose or the author's intent when they write in these text structures. Another thing that we've done is we've developed student-friendly definitions of these text structures. So here's our icon for simple description, and we say the author's intent is to tell us about something. They use characteristics or facts to describe it. And the icon we share, as there's a pencil drawing of the vase, and in this case, the drawing is supposed to represent the picture that we want our readers to have in their minds as we describe something. So we're going to use characteristics and facts and words that help our readers to, you know, have a picture in their minds. The next thing that we do is we teach them a strategy called POW. And in POW, we've sort of adapted this from sort of the SRSD model, where POW means pick your idea, organize your notes, write and say more. And in this case, we teach students to pick your idea. And in this case, we need to identify the topic that we're writing about. And we've gone a little bit further and said that students need to choose the structure, choose the text structure that they're going to be writing in. So are they describing something, or are they comparing and contrasting two ideas, or are they writing a sequence of events? Based on the structure and the topic, they need to then organize their notes. So they need to basically choose an order for the information that they're going to present. And so we share, okay, first you need to pick your idea, then organize your notes, and then write and review. And for writing and review, we teach students the first thing you need to do is write your topic sentence of your paragraph, and then write the information in order. And when we say in order, it's the order that you chose in your notes, right? So as you organized your information, you chose a particular order. You should follow that order as you're writing. Not to say that they can't make some revisions, but we want them to try to follow their plan. And then we ask them to review to see if they've included all of their information. Now, this is a little bit cumbersome to share with students, and so in our slides, we sometimes we shorten it and we say pick the topic and structure, organize. We need to choose an order, and then write the topic, information, and then review. And you can see that it goes along with our strategy. So I'm going to share with you an introductory lesson around writing simple description passage about pill bugs. And this slide represents my modeling slide, where I share with students the information that they need to write about for pill bugs. Now you can see that this information frame identifies the structure, it identifies the topic, and then we have characteristics and facts listed below. And these facts are sometimes in complete sentences, and then sometimes they're not, right? And so, so we do this in order to reduce the amount of reading that students have to do, so they don't have to go to source material, and instead they can focus more on organizing the text, organizing the information, and thinking about how to put together a paragraph using this information. So in this case, we tell them, well, the first thing that we said you need to do is I've got to pick my topic, and say, well, in this case, the topic is sort of picked for me. It's listed at the top here. It's pill bugs. So I've circled pill bugs because that is the topic of my paragraph. So now I know that I'm going to write about pill bugs. Let me see. Now I need to, I can check off that I've picked my topic. So the second thing that I need to do is I need to choose my structure. Now in this case, I've got a list of characteristics and facts. So I'm just going to be writing about pill bugs. I'm not comparing them to anything else, and I'm not writing a sequence of events around pill bugs or a problem or solution around pill bugs. So I'm just going to describe pill bugs. And so in this case, you know, again, it's listed for me in my information frame, but it's SD stands for simple description, and I'm going to write a simple description. Okay, great. So now I'm finished with the P and for pick for POW. So I've gotten that done. So the next thing that I need to do is organize my notes. And you can see that I'm just clicking my PowerPoint and it just switches over to organize. So this is a feature that we've built in for teachers, so that it just allows for you to go a little bit faster without having to write a lot on the screen or to turn your back to the students as you're writing. So now I need to organize my notes. Well, let's see. I'm going to read through these facts, and I'm going to read through the facts and think about what order might what might make sense. So it says they are arthropods, have 7 pairs of jointed legs, dark brown head, outer skeleton. Well, those are sort of like body parts, right? And then they can roll up and squeeze under things. So that seems like an interesting fact. And they have a stripe down their back. Well, that's something about how they look. So let's see. Well, I like that they can roll and squeeze under things, so I could put that first, but maybe people might want to know what pill bugs are first. So maybe I'll save my interesting fact for last instead, actually. And I'm gonna pick that they are arthropods. So I'm gonna put on 1 next to they are arthropods because I want to start with that fact. And then, well, let's see. They're arthropods. It says that they have 7 pairs of jointed legs. I wonder if that is why they are arthropods. Maybe they have 7 pairs of jointed legs. Tells us a little bit about something about arthropods. So I'm going to put that second. Okay, so now I've been talking about their body. I've been saying that they've got legs. Maybe I should list they have outer skeleton next. That goes along with their body. So I'm going to put a 3 next to outer skeleton. And well, let's see. I said I would save can roll up and squeeze under things for last. So maybe I want to talk about how they look. So I'm going to put 4 next to dark brown head, and then 5 next to stripe down their back, and then I'll write 6 next to can roll and squeeze under things. So now I've got a plan for how I want to put an order to this information. I think this will make sense to my readers. I think it's gonna be really clear to them what I'm doing when I describe these bugs. So let's see. All right. So now I've checked off that I ordered my information. Now I can write. So the first thing that I need to do is write my topic sentence, right? So it says write in topic. So let's see. A good way to write a topic sentence sometimes might be to introduce the topic, but then I might also pair it with my first fact. So it says pill bugs, and it says they are arthropods. So I could say something like, I'm going to write a story about pill bugs. But that's not really that interesting. Instead, maybe I might just, because it's an informational text, I could say pill bugs are arthropods. So I'm going to go ahead and click. I'm going to write pill bugs are arthropods. So let's see. Now that I've used that information, I can cross it off in my organizer. I've crossed off pill bugs, and I can cross off they are arthropods. All right. All right. I've got the topic sentence done. So actually, I'm going to check off that I've done my topic sentence there. Now I need to write the information. And so I've got an order I know that I'm going to write, they have 7 pairs of jointed legs. Now I could write pill bugs have 7 pairs of jointed legs. But if I do that, then I'm going to have pill bugs are arthropods. Pill bugs have 7 pairs of jointed legs. I could say pill bugs, pill bugs, pill bugs, but that gets a little bit boring. So I'm going to use a pronoun here, and I'm going to say they instead of pill bugs. So I'm going to go ahead and write, instead of pill bugs have 7 pairs of jointed legs, I'm going to write they have 7 pairs of jointed legs. And then I can go ahead and cross that information off. All right. Now, sometimes it's also nice to use transition words. So words that, sort of when ideas are related to one another in informational text, it's really nice to sort of have a transition to show how these ideas are related. So they have an outer skeleton is my third idea. Now, they have 7 pairs of jointed legs is sort of related because they, it's still about their body. So I might use the word also. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, pill bugs also have an outer skeleton. And I'm going to go ahead and cross off outer skeleton. All right, so great. Now, pill bugs also have an outer skeleton. Now, I said that they have a dark brown head was going to be the next thing I write about, and they have a stripe down their back was the thing. Now, those things are kind of related in some ways. They both talk about sort of like the color or what it looks like. So there's a dark brown head and stripe down their back. Sometimes if ideas are related, I can combine them. And so I'm going to combine these ideas here. And I'm gonna say they have a dark brown head and a stripe down their back. And I'm going to put that into one sentence. So even though I had 4 and 5, I think I can combine this. I'm going to say, let's see. In addition, they have a dark brown head and a stripe down their back. So now you can see that I added in addition here. I wrote in addition because I'm saying more about the pill bugs. And so that's another transition word. And that transition says, well, I'm going to say more about what they look like, right? So I said they have legs, they have an outer skeleton. In addition, they have a dark brown head and a stripe down their back. So I go ahead and cross that information off. And now I'm left with my interesting fact at the end. And so I can say pill bugs can roll up and squeeze under things. And so I'm going to go ahead and write that, and then I cross that off. So you can see here that I've done several things as an instructor, but it's all been modeling, and I wanted to present that in a way that I shared with you so that you could see how I might talk through and do a think aloud with the students, right? So I was thinking aloud as I wrote this passage, so that the students can see what I was doing, right, and see how I was thinking. What are other things that you noticed, and you can go ahead and type into the chat, what are some things that you noticed that I did as a teacher that might help students as they write their own? All right, so Pauline asks if I always provide characteristics and facts or just as I'm modeling. And what we do is we start off by providing information to the students in these in passages like this. And then as they become more independent, then we shift toward writing their own. And that's when I can get into teaching them how to find information from sources. So right now I'm just teaching them how to organize information and about the informational text itself. Somebody asks, says, when I teach transition words and combining sentences, do you teach these in isolation as mini lessons? And that's a great, Christy, that's a great question. And I'm going to show you some step-up lessons that we have along the way. Anne mentions they need to know some good transition techniques. We're showing students how to connect ideas. And so I am showing them transitions, and I'm showing them how to connect ideas. I'm thinking about how I might help the reader. I've mentioned the reader a lot of times. I'm so glad that, Liz, you mentioned that. I mentioned the reader. And so I really try to keep the focus on what does my reader need to know. Some people said that I gave vocabulary to name the types of words and their functions. And I modeled how to use those words. So, yeah, I think that, and you're seeing some of these other ideas. So these are, you guys picked up on a lot of the things that I was trying to do as I was writing. And what was nice about this, I think from my perspective as a teacher, right? And I hope that you see this, is that I didn't have to think through the passage that I was going to write, right? I also didn't have to actually spend the time writing. So I developed this as a PowerPoint, and you can see as I click the slide, it makes, I've done an animation here that makes it look like I'm writing, right? And shows sort of, oh, this is how we're right from left to right, and things like that. But I don't have to actually do the writing. So I could really focus my attention as a teacher on that think aloud, and really show how to think through all of those things that you guys are mentioning in the chat, right? And so, and even when it's crossing the information off or thinking about the order, that's all done for me. And so I can just really, again, focus on my language and the vocabulary that I want to share with the students. All right, so now I've written my information. The next thing that I need to do is I need to review to make sure that I've done things. So I'm going to share with you a review slide, and this may not make a whole lot of sense to you just yet, but I'll share with you. I'm going to check off that I'm going to review, and I've developed this review your writing strategy. And so I've got this checklist on the left that shows that, okay, I want to, combine topics and facts. I want to use nouns and pronouns so that I'm alternating between nouns and pronouns to keep my reader interested. I combine facts, use transitions, use good capitals and punctuation, and then my sentences make sense. So, so I'm going to go ahead and go through this. And what we do is we teach kids that they, for every time that they do one of these things in the checklist, they earn a brick. And so we've got these bricks, and it's partly because of the structures theme here, but they earn bricks, right? So let's see. Topic and fact. Did I combine a topic and fact? Now I click, here's my topic and here's a fact, pill bugs and they're arthropods. And you can see that it just highlights on the screen for me, pill bugs are arthropods. And so, yes, I've done my topic and fact. Now, the next thing I want to do is, have I alternated between using nouns and pronouns to make my reading more interesting? And so let's see, pill bugs and they or them have been used throughout. So yes, I think I've used nouns and pronouns. And so I'm going to give myself a brick there. And then have I combined facts? Well, let's see. They had a dark gray body and pale streaks down their back. In this case, you'll see that it's pale streaks down their back instead of a stripe down their back. This is a different iteration, so sorry about that. But I did combine those facts in my writing there, and so I can share another brick. And then transition words, so things like also, or in addition, or when threatened. Now this is, again, this is a different passage than I just shared with you because I had a different iteration of the presentation, but and my previous one didn't have these. So, but if you want me to share these with you, I'll share them with that, and it has the correct modeling lesson. But you can see I use transition, so I'm going to give myself a brick there, and then. Let's see, capitalization and punctuation. Now, I haven't taught capitalization and punctuation in this lesson, but I want to always point out to students that they should check for it. And so let's check capitals and punctuation throughout, right? And I did that. I've used commas and periods, and so great. So I've used capitalization and punctuation. And then do my sentences make sense? So what I would do here is have students read through the passage and then decide if their sentences make sense. And so we'll say that we've done that, and we can check that off. Now, I'm looking at sort of Heather Burton's last comment here. It says, eliminate staring at a blank page. One challenge to modeling and doing a think aloud like this is knowing that students are paying attention, right, and keeping them engaged in the lesson, right? So especially if I'm teaching to a large group, students could stare off into space, or they could get distracted with things. And so we've developed a workbook that goes along with this that is meant to keep the students engaged. And you can see the workbook example of the workbook page here. And so what we do is as I'm writing or circling things, right? I circled pill bugs on one page, and I circled simple description, and I crossed off information as I included it. I also have the students do that on their workbook page. This way that they're engaged in the lesson. They're expected to do something as I do it. So as I write pill bugs or arthropods, they fill in this closed passage where they would write pill bugs, and then it says are arthropods. And they have blank pairs of blank legs, so 7 pairs of jointed legs. And so they would, and they can use their workbook there, and of course my PowerPoint slides to fill in the blanks as we go. And so I always ask students to do that, and this keeps them engaged and helps them understand what I'm showing them, but without requiring too much effort on their part. Again, I want to model, and I want them to understand what I'm doing as I model, but keeping them engaged in this way sort of helps them remember, oh, I've got to identify the topic. I have to cross off arthropods, and I've got to sort of check off, you know, that I picked my topic and structure. Liz says, does this come in a digital format for students to work from? No, at this point it doesn't. I only have paper workbooks for students to work from. I developed this before COVID, and so I wasn't doing a lot of this work over Zoom or online yet, and so I haven't developed a digital version of this yet. This was mostly paper pencil. All right, so somebody asked about, do I have mini lessons? And the answer is yes. We called them step-up activities, but basically they're mini lessons. And so, so we had mini lessons around things like general skills, so how to combine information and what to combine, transition words or signal words and how to choose transition words, writing complete sentences from notes, and then how to structure specific skills, how to write topic sentences, how to organize similarities and differences, and how to include dates in a sequence, and things like that. So these are examples of some step-up activities that I have, and I'll show you them in a minute. In the meantime, Lisa asked, paper versus computer, writing using both. Can you speak to that? I think Steve will probably talk a little bit about you know, writing using paper, pencil versus computer. In my mind, it doesn't matter that much. The one thing that I would say is that we have some research to say, you know, we want to have kids use the mode that they're most comfortable using. You know, if they have learned to write using paper, pencil, then it's sort of nice to have them continue to write using paper, pencil when we're teaching them something new. Because if you try to have them transition to a computer at that point, then they're learning the computer and they're learning the new skills at the same time. We really would want to have them, you know, write in the mode that they're most comfortable with. Sometimes we expect students, especially in this age, to know how to use machines very well, and so using computers and writing with a computer, we say, oh, kids are born with you know, tablets or computers in their hands, and so they're very good at this. But one thing that one thing that I'm noticing is that we're not teaching kids typing skills, and if they're readers who have difficulty writing, or I'm sorry, if they're writers who have difficulty reading, especially early writers, and we're asking them to type, they have to then find these letters on a keyboard, right? And the keyboard only has capital letters, so it doesn't have lowercase letters, and they need to find the letter. It's not in alphabetical order, and so it can be really challenging for young writers to write on a keyboard unless we teach them writing or keyboarding skills. And so I would say, if we're going to use computers, and I think it's a valid way to teach writing, but we should use, we should teach them keyboarding skills if we're going to expect them to use a keyboard. And then again, as we're teaching something new, I like to always sort of have students use the mode that they're most comfortable with as they're learning.